So I'm Karen Zhang. I am a former product marketing leader at eBay. I built out and led the global product marketing team for fashion. And then I'll let the other panelists introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. Realizing that we're in between happy hour and the last panel. My name is Rachel Gabato. I work at Walmart. A lot of stories today and anecdotes about Walmart, so it's really interesting to hear. Also, I manage a product management group that focuses on merchandising transformation and innovation, and so essentially what that means is the intersection of the merchant community at Walmart and then how we execute and build tools to support them.
And again, Neil Cameron, Senior Director for Supermicro, and I'm looking forward to the conversations.
Hi. Hello. Yeah. Hi, I'm Raul Romero. I'm a product manager at eBay, where I work on both AI and fashion products. So I work collaboratively with the vertical teams and also the horizontal teams in delivering AI solutions for fashion customers.
Nice, thank you. Hi, my name is Jimmy Huff. I work for T-Mobile. I'm a part of our senior sales IoT team, so that means the Internet of Things. Biz development, we do a lot of retail, all the different types of verticals. And we've been lately producing some AI solutions for certain equipment manufacturers and device manufacturers that deliver business outcomes.
Awesome. So I want to hear from each of you from your POV. We heard a lot today about the different verticals within AI, so whether it's infrastructure, operations, customer engagement. Can you speak a little bit about what verticals you're touching and which ones you're directly working on?
Yeah, so we focus across a wide variety of verticals within Supermicro, retail being one of the biggest ones that we focused on today. But I also focus on healthcare, life sciences, also manufacturing and logistics, right? So a lot of those are kind of crossing over in some cases, especially in the retail space when you're looking at logistics and those types of things. So when I look at all these different use cases that are coming from the retail sector, from manufacturing, logistics sector, and even in healthcare, right? All of them have some common components as it relates to infrastructure. So when we talk about edge and edge componentry, edge devices, like we were talking about earlier this afternoon, those are all things that have some commonality, but also have very different applications, right? So in the retail space, very much at the store level, we're really focused on those things and the experience at the store. Manufacturing and logistics, we're looking at supply chain, right? All those things matter from an infrastructure standpoint, right? And depending on what you're trying to do, we have a variety of different solutions for that, right? And so that's where we're really focusing our efforts on these particular verticals, because as much as there is commonality, there's also very much a difference in terms of how you're going to apply it, right? And so that's where I've been brought in to Supermicro to really develop that program.
I can go next. So within Walmart, I'll speak more to the business versus kind of the technology and infrastructure. Within the merchandising community and within kind of our business partners, I would characterize it in three ways. One is, accelerating the work, right? How do we accelerate kind of the mundane tasks, the daily tasks? How do we accelerate insights out of data? And then I would say another bucket would be innovation. And so how do we actually leapfrog kind of the acceleration, and where can we really push the bounds of creating a unique customer experience? I think we just announced the Gen AI shopper assistant. Deborah, you were just kind of talking about that earlier. We have a Gen AI merchant assistant also that is helping merchants do kind of these tasks of data analysis. I think, Jeffrey, you were just talking about the gigabyte of data that you're getting, and you're trying to understand that. And so we're using Gen AI to identify data patterns, insights for the merchants to accelerate kind of the work they're doing and how they develop and define their strategy, so the assortments they want to select. And then I would say education is probably another area where we've got a diverse set of merchants and associates, right? Not all of them are well-versed in technology, and some of them are naysayers about the technology, and how do you give the associates the time and the space and the tools where they can actually learn how these tools can help them versus be kind of the initial thinking of, oh, it's going to take my job. It's not going to take your job. It's actually going to help you do more strategic things that will drive innovation within the organization.
On our side, there's essentially 3 areas of focus. Number one, and this shapes everything that we do, is how do we make our people more productive? And that's a common denominator across all the different panelists. We're just thinking about how we can leverage AI to make ourselves more productive. How do we use tools to vibe code prototypes, which is essentially text prompts, and create prototypes out of just raw text and or images and design files, when before it took us a long time to even create a prototype. That's one area that we do as a company. The second area is more around how do we create scalable innovations where the things that before were not as efficient or not as good are much better. So if I can put an example to it, one of the things that you can think about is whenever you go and you're on eBay and you land on a product page, view item page, you get recommendations, and those recommendations are either similar items or items based on your previous shopping history, inspired by your recent views. So we leverage AI to essentially ensure that the recommendations are much, much more relevant and drive significant incremental GMV from that. So those are one of the things. Another example of how do we help people do things either faster and more efficiently is also in the realm of sellers. So we recently, eBay launched the magical listing tool, where we're essentially allowing people to more easily go from an image into actually creating a listing. So you go from an image, and then it creates your title, it identifies what the product is, it recommends you a price, it writes a description for you. So it automates all the process that would have otherwise taken the sellers a few minutes and makes it into the snap of a picture with, of course, you in the loop to make sure that there's nothing wrong. And then the last part is the magical experiences, which is my particular focus, which is how do we leverage AI to rethink and reinvent and create opportunities for shoppers to fulfill their shopping needs in new and innovative ways. And how can we leverage AI to make that possible? Whether it is the use case that you were mentioning around, like, hey, thinking about an occasion and trying to shop for something, to other things that are more specific, with more specific shopping needs that we weren't able to address before. That's the area that I'm particularly focused on, but we as a company focus on those 3 different areas, from how do we make our people more productive, how do we scale the solutions that we already have to be even better, and the last, how do we create new ways for people to shop.
That's awesome. Thank you. For T-Mobile, since we're a telecommunication company, we're leveraging our 5G network. So I'm not sure if you guys realize that we're one of the first 5G standalone networks out there in the world. The way we're leveraging that network is there's a lot of feature functionalities that allow AI applications and services to work. We talked a little bit about edge compute. We're coming out with something called mobile edge compute, or MEC, where we're going to leverage our infrastructure to get closer to the edge, right? So those applications that need lower latency, that need the throughput and capacity, we're going to leverage our infrastructure to make sure that those AI edge units and compute can be done. So we're thinking about leveraging compute power at the mobile switching centers. So if you guys know that all the carriers have these POPs or virtual POPs or these locations, but that's kind of like a miniature data center, if you will. But there's a lot of servers, a lot of fiber, a lot of equipment in those facilities, but they're geographically placed near some of your locations, right? So we can leverage that from the compute perspective. One of the things that we're doing in AI too as well is something called network slicing. If you go Google that or AI it, you'll figure that that's partitioning our network to allow these certain AI applications to work faster, better, and more transparently, if you will. So the network slice is actually building a VPN in the air. So we'll give you a 5x5 or a 10x10 channel, which means that capacity is used for those applications. So if you think about what that can do for your business is that now those decision-making processes and AI applications can move a little bit faster, and for your consumers that are going into your retail stores, that's much better. The other thing that we're doing too as well that might excite you is that we're working on leveraging something that everybody walks in a retail store or they're working on. They all have a mobile phone. And that data on that mobile phone is very important, and the information, a part of that is the journey that that person takes in that store. Without getting into data privacy laws and anything of that nature, there's something called vector radio frequency, which is just you broadcasting your Bluetooth ID or your phone ID, but it doesn't get into any of your personal data. That's done indoor tracking, so that can be used to track exactly where you are and what you're doing, and that data is very important for some of the retailers out there. So we're doing a lot of dwell time, consumer time, walk by, and being able to give that analytics to those customers as well as to the product owners so they can put the right products in the right locations in retail stores and things of that nature. Internally at T-Mobile, I'll tell you this is something neat. I learned this about 2 weeks ago. We just opened up a AI hub that allows our employees to go out and look at things that we're doing in the AI space, right? There's a lot of tools that we created internally to help us with, if you ever walk into any of the 6,233 retail locations that we have, they are able to provide somewhat of, when you come in and watch, hey, I want to see about the pricing, Jimmy, so I can give you cross comparisons of the different types of pricing, phones and things of that nature, but they have a tool now where they're leveraging AI to produce that information. Before, when we were working there, we used to have a piece of paper that leveraged that. So we're getting a little bit more efficient, a little bit more productive, and we're doing that in our retail locations.
Awesome. So covering a lot of ground. So we hit all the pillars across data warehousing, manufacturing, production facilities, data centers, brick and mortar stores, and just like behaviorally how users are browsing or searching and shopping. Jimmy, thank you for bringing up like the employee advocacy, because I know at the top of this, the theme that I've actually heard now a few times is that AI is not here to replace your work unless you're not leveraging it, in which then you'll be competing directly against your fellow colleagues who are using it. That being said, can Rachel and Raul and basically expand on how, like, yes, these are consumer-facing companies, but how are your employees like catching up, being caught up to speed?
I can start. So our employees, our associates, like I mentioned earlier, is a lot of, one is just education and how to use it. Two is, we have obviously a governed data set that we have to use within Walmart. And I would say, how we accelerate, I'll give a couple of use cases. I work in a product group. Our product development life cycle is essentially, we curate an idea, we define a business problem, we go to the design team, we say, can you guys go, work with our merchant champions, kind of ideate on design, and then we'll write a product requirement document. And I know we say we're agile, but this doesn't sound agile. But anyway, so then we go into development, right? And so internally, what we can do now with like ChatGPT and some OpenAI and these other things is you can actually create the Figma design much faster. You can actually collaborate with the merchants, without having to find time on their calendar. And then you can write the requirements to give to the tech team, and then the tech team uses the capabilities and they start writing code. It writes code for you, right? And so acceleration of the work, when I say accelerate, that means acceleration of the work internally to bring things to our user community much faster, right? And so that's just kind of one use case where internally as we execute, this is how we execute. Now, thinking of kind of the strategy of the merchants, right? Like Deborah, you were saying there's a bunch of brands that we didn't know anything about. Well, our merchants probably don't know anything about them either, because kind of what happens is the merchants are curating their assortment for the next season or the next year. They're pulling a bunch of data from a bunch of different data sources. They're creating their spreadsheets. They're looking at what they did last year. How did these items perform? But they're spending a lot of time doing that versus kind of left side, which is what's happening in the market, what are influencers saying, and the ability to have these types of capabilities that can actually go out and look at TikTok and then present recommendations back is like, you're missing this in rest of market. Okay, the fashion merchant wants to wait on Gen Z or millennials. Well, what's resonating on TikTok as opposed to kind of what did I do last year, and I think I'm missing the red T-shirt that sold really well, and I was out of stock. And so, there's the innovation part, and then there's the how do we do the work faster part.
Yeah, I think similarly to what Rachel is mentioning is how do we are using AI to also accelerate the end-to-end process of creating products, features, and learnings, right? Like, if you think about where does a product idea come from? It essentially mostly comes from two places, right? You're inspired by a customer problem that customers are telling you somewhere, right? Whether it's like your traditional customer satisfaction surveys or different touch points that customers are actually telling you what they like, what they don't like. It also comes from the interactions that they have with the product. What are they clicking on? What are they not clicking on? And how is that, how we can leverage that for learnings. In that process and in that ideation stage, now we have the ability to process significant amounts of customer verbatims and really find patterns that we weren't able to do at the same scale before. So you're really able to nail down what are people complaining about. If you are interested in learning about a topic, and it's like, oh, well, I'm interested in this specific topic. What are people saying about this? You're able to really dig into the different customer verbatims and really learn about where the biggest pain points are. The second part is more about the making sense of data. I think one of the really interesting things is that AI has democratized the entry level and maybe advanced level knowledge of different disciplines. So in that way, like, you have a data analyst at your disposal in a way. And people that did not know how to use SQL before are using like our internal versions and our own hosted large language models to actually learn and really interpret customer behavior without having to know SQL and just asking AI to do that for themselves. So I think that's really important in the product and the idea and the ideation stage and identification of different customer problems. When you go into the execution, I think it also is really important, anywhere from writing product requirements to interpreting like our own customer research. We have incredible customer research teams, like UX research teams, that have gathered thousands of different interviews if you accumulate them over time, and really being able to interpret that and really being able to surface what are the right insights. And then when it comes to the execution, there's, and this is public information from all companies, right? It's really leveraging AI and the tools that we have inside to be able to make ideas and designs into production code much easier. So I think throughout the stack, there's different ways that we are leveraging AI to make ourselves more productive, and it really has helped us cut cycle times in a meaningful manner.
Just to add to that, we get asked quite a bit about optimization in stores. So how do we optimize through AI solutions, and how can be more efficient with the things that I'm doing in store, out of store, those type of things. So being able to leverage analytics through computer vision. So many of us have video already in store, but using that video to really look at some of the things that you just said. What's my dwell time at a particular product, and then how do I use that dwell time in order to enhance the capture rate of that individual looking at it? So we're working to leverage the technology and bring it back closer, localize it in a way in which we can make faster decisions on how Jimmy purchases his golf product or his tailor-made clubs or things of that nature, and then how I can connect that connection to a opt-in service that I begin to interact with, so I can build these personal demand charts about how I shop. And so from the technology perspective, we're going to be leveraging, or we're helping retailers leverage how to put all that data set into and orchestrate it in a way that where you're more productive in selling your solutions and your services to those visitors. And I'll add to this because I get this every day because we're on the retail side helping customers, is I also want to know when something happens. So we're working on some IoT sensors that we call occupancy sensors that kind of records things in a way in which we know how many people are in a store and what they're doing and where they're going to be at, but also leveraging that all across the United States at each of the retail locations. So that orchestration, that manifest that we're doing in terms of that data can be at the edge or can be localized in the cloud, however they want to do it, but bringing that faster to the endpoint so we can make soon decisions on how to react to those consumers as they walk through the retail location.
Awesome, thanks. So clearly data, optimizing data, that's how our current employees are using that. Is anyone here an analytics leader or is on a data team? Oh, one. Okay. And 1.5, someone's scratching their head potentially. Awesome. So this actually hits home for me because prior to my go-to-market and product marketing career, I was that data analyst that was like measuring the number of hours I was changing like the null column to zeros, and it was really just a formatting issue. And maybe had this existed, maybe I would never have left analytics to do product marketing. But on the topic of data, Neil, I think I read something today about Supermicro announcing like this new way it was like liquid cooling, a new way to like optimize cost for data centers. So that's very exciting. But in your eyes, what are specific areas that you think retail leaders are kind of like overlooking, and what would you recommend, and how is Supermicro helping to tackle those?
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously the liquid cooling part of the business is really a way to optimize the amount of capacity or servers that you can actually put into a single rack, right? In many cases, air cooled, you could put 4 in a rack. Liquid cooled, you can go 8. So you can almost, double your capacity almost immediately. So those are some things. But from a retail perspective, I still think the thing that is most underrepresented so far is the ability to leverage that scale or some of that scale at the edge, right? When you talk about having to get real-time transactional items from, a retail store, right? Making sure that you can have the right amount of equipment, supplies there, but also making sure that, when you see a customer walking through the aisles, you can actually track that behavior, understand where they're stopping, understand what they're actually looking at, whether they're buying or not buying. All those things can be transacted and done in a real time if you have servers and GPUs actually at the retail store level, right? And that's a drastic difference to where we were before, because like they were mentioning earlier, you had a data warehouse where you had to load the data, try to understand what was going on. Here you could actually find out in real time what people are buying, how they're buying it, and actually make real-time decisions on that at the store level, right? For me, when I go to a store now, I'm looking more for an experience more than anything else, right? I want to have a good experience. If I go to a store, I can't find a person to talk to if I need something answered. That's one of the most frustrating things in the world for me, right? But I was with my daughter. She was buying something the other day, and I went online ahead of time to actually look for the product that she needed because I'm not, don't know much about those things. So when I did that, there was actually an online, almost like a digital twin of the store. So I knew what she needed. I knew what she wanted to go get, and I could literally go look in the store and find out where it was. So when I walked in, I went right to the location, and I picked it up, and she was amazed that I knew where any of this stuff was, right? And so things like that, I think things that are being missed at the retail level are really leveraging that edge to the most optimal that you can do, right? So many opportunities to do things at that level. It used to be easy for us. We could just sell at the data center and we were fine. We could sell a whole bunch of gear towards that. But what we're looking at now is how we can truly optimize that experience through technology, right? And I think that's one of the most exciting things for me from the standpoint of being in 25 years in technology. It used to be whoever had the biggest data center, the most equipment could really get the best results faster. Now you can do this at the edge where everybody has an advantage, right? If you deploy it correctly, you have a distinct advantage if you can do that. And that's one of the things that's most exciting for me.
Awesome, yeah. On the note of something that looks like a digital twin of a store, I think that's come a long way. Like I recall Target, for example, they started just by listing on their PDP page like what aisle something would be on, and that's probably close to what was formerly only available to like store associates and their back end. On that note, though, I do want to hear from the audience. We have about 5 minutes left, but before I turn to the audience for Q&A or C, comments as well, what's one lasting thought in terms of like a trend or a prediction that you foresee? I know that this question's been asked like 1 to 3 years out, but since it's moving at such a pace that we can't predict, let's say 6 months from now, what is a trend or prediction that y'all are excited about?
I'll give it a shot. I think, the AI capabilities are developing at such a fast pace. I think you'll see a whole different kind of way of working. I think you'll see a different type of experience, and I'll give an example, and this is just one I just thought of, so it's not something that we're implementing or doing anything like that. But one could imagine, we have the shopper assistant. They're curating. I have a dinner, like Deborah was saying. I have a dinner party. Okay, here's an outfit. I like what it looks like. Okay, I need it in a couple days. Oh well, you're located in the catchment of stores that actually have have these items. Oh, and you have a pickup or a delivery scheduled for the next 2 days from now. And so we're just going to curate. We're just going to group that together. And when you either come to the store or we deliver it, you will put that. We'll give that whole experience, right? And so you're essentially showing you're putting together all the data and the customer journeys into one kind of transaction, but it's seamless to the customer, right? And you're giving them an experience that they're like, oh, they knew I had a delivery. Oh, that's really cool. Like, and that's how you kind of, you build the trust with the consumer, and you have them come in for repeat purchases. Another kind of personal thing is, as you're going through the store and you're seeing maybe somebody is, all of our associates have their apps, and you see somebody standing in front of an aisle that's kind of, maybe there's a notification that says, oh, you should go talk to them because maybe they're struggling with, like, is this the right thing I need to buy, or is that the right thing I need to buy? And so I could see a world where it becomes more personalized in a much faster way.
I think, echoing your sentiment, I think AI agents, and you've heard this paradigm, you probably already heard from Jensen Huang and NVIDIA saying that this is a year of agents. I think that it's really exciting, like the ability for us to go to a paradigm where things can be done for you. Maybe things like thinking about that use case of, hey, you're searching for something and you have a lot of constraints in mind when you're searching. But I also think, and I'm also really interested. I'm also really excited about what are the innovations from like the previous couple of years that will be now delivered into customers. It takes a bit of time to productionize all the innovations that come around. If you think about, like, the ChatGPT moment was in 2022, 2023, when it was a massive explosion, and now we're seeing a lot more of those coming into life, into production environments where people can actually interact with them. So whether it's Walmart, eBay also announced our own shopping assistant. So I'm also really excited about all the things that haven't released yet that are using some of the booms that occurred like last year and the previous year, whether it is in the space of image generation. eBay has been leading on a product called Shop the Look, where we're bringing multiple items and providing outfits based on the styles that we recognize for people, and we're continuing to evolve that. So I'm excited both about agents and the ability that it has for things not to be static, for people to express preferences, for us to be able to understand and provide good recommendations. But I'm also really excited about how we can continue to evolve based on the technologies that are in people's hands today, but it takes a little bit to get them to a point where people can manipulate them and get in touch with them in production-ready experiences.
Yeah, and I think the thing probably I'm most excited about is how, and I think you talked about it earlier, is how AI can actually enhance the human experience, right? It's really important to me that you still, if as much as AI is taking care of a lot of things for us, it's how does it enhance your actual experience that you're having, right? I mean, I'm a big do-it-yourself person, and I love to do projects at the house. And you know, we were talking about this earlier. If I could just take a picture of where I want to put a new fire pit into my backyard, right? If I could do that and have AI actually generate a list of all the pieces that I need, all the product that I need to go supply, and then, you know, where I can, you know, source it all from, and then actually go order it, and then just show up at a, you know, at your local place and have it all for you, right? That's something that you can't do by yourself unless it takes you, you know, 40, 50 hours of work, right? These are things that can be automated and done, and that's how it can enhance your experience, right? Because now you're just spending time building it, as opposed to trying to figure out which is the best material, which is the best this, right? If we can do things like that, like you mentioned, you know, I want to go on a trip somewhere and have all my outfits picked out, right? And because it knows my style, it knows what I'm looking for. That's where I think AI is the most exciting, right? Because it's just enhancing your experience. Because now I spend time on what am I going to do on my trip versus what am I going to wear, right? What am I going to put together? So that's where I think AI can be really exciting in the future. But it's that human experience that's still required in order to move.
10 seconds, something that we're working on, like a dark project, just taking the outputs of AI and being able to deliver on the last mile. So I see AI and drone technology coming together in the future. So when a decision is made on a product and services that I want, then there's a connection of the transport of it, getting it delivered immediately, and that technology is we're already working on that for a lot of retailers out there, especially in the pharmacy world.
Do we have time for questions? No? Okay. Well, they'll take questions at the happy hour, so thank you so much for your time.